How's it going, dudes? Are you tired of being pathetic? Are you clamoring for a change to your sad, stupid life, but just don't know how to make that happen? Well, I can't help you there, but you can pretend to have a cooler life by playing this thing. One-Upmanship is the 2013 board game that was widely received on release to the tune of several less than stellar reviews. Look, I don't want to be mean, but people really hated this thing. When it came out, this game was regarded as one of the worst board games ever made, carrying several questionable decisions in its theming, design, and mechanics to the tune of one of the worst BGG ratings I have ever seen on the platform. So obviously, after looking at this, I had to have it for myself to see what all the fuss was about. But upon receiving my prize, I encountered an interesting discovery. Once I opened the box and started reading, I realized that the game I received was an updated version of the game, changing some of the components and mechanics in an attempt to fix the game for new players. So what was initially going to be a fun romp has turned into a completely different mission, as we are now going to take a look at the game's design, rules, gameplay, and fun factor to answer a question I wasn't expecting to be asking today. With all of its changes, is One-Upmanship still a bad game? Let's start off this impromptu investigation by jumping into the game's design. As I mentioned, we are going to be focusing on what I guess is version 2.0 for this run-through, but seeing as most of you probably don't know much about the original, I will mention whenever there is a major difference between the two. Most of the info I could gather about version 1 comes from Tom Vassel's rundown of the title, so let's go ahead and see what this bad boy has to offer. To start us off, there's an American flag plastered directly in the middle of the board. Come on, that's what I'm talking about! One-Upmanship is a subscriber to the widely popular square Monopoly board approach. Each space carries a different symbol on it indicating what effect it has, as well as its market impact and movement arrow. You'll notice that the spaces all look very basic and, quite honestly, a little boring, but this does end up playing into the business feel of the game really well while you're playing. Two exceptions to this though, Joe Sixpack here got screwed with the design on his intro space, and this minimal theme leads to a big issue with the bonus space, as I'll get into. Now, we're moving on to the components, and I kid you not, you are about to bear witness to what might be the biggest glow-up in board game history when it comes to the money. Here is some of the money from the newer version. Nice and simple, color-coordinated, sturdy paper that is easy to pass around, a bill you'd be proud to donate to a church. In comparison, this is what you were expected to play with in the original version. Oh! I mean, it's night and day here. This makes me feel like I'm throwing around entire salaries on stocks I don't even need. This makes me feel like I'm peddling for penny trades, praying for a boom to save me. Spare stock, man? The stocks follow the same business in the front, business in the back design as the rest of the game, and carry different values to represent shares. The cards are nice, but I got a real issue with these values, which, again, I'll bring up later. The pawns are basic, but are actually a lot higher quality than they first appear, and the dice in this bad boy are absolutely massive. The stock chart, trophies, money cards, and Scarlet Bees will all be covered in their specific segments. But I want to end the design section on the travesty that is the properties. Look, I understand the minimal business aesthetic we've got going on here, but did we really need to make the real estate companies not only monotone gray, but also the buildings featureless gray cubes? I thought the picture we were going for here was business, not business. Surprisingly, through an entire game of rolling dice on the board, the blocks never did fall, so I guess these were made this way for function over fashion? New to the city of Chicago, come see the featureless gray tower. It works! But while you're adventuring through the concrete jungle seeing the sights, make sure that your beautiful views remain uninterrupted with today's sponsor, Aura. Some hot cam lore for you. I quit a job last year to go back into paving, and after 1 week of smooth sailing, To my surprise, I started receiving an average of 13 spam calls a day over the next 3 weeks. Oh, would I have loved to have had Aura during that time period, as instead of my phone being open for business to whatever slimeball got a hold of my extended warranty that day, they would have had to contend with Aura's spam call filter, preventing that nonsense from ever reaching me so I can, I don't know, do my job. Not only that, they'll take this mission right to the source with their data broker opt-out, finding the data brokers that have collected the information that gets sold to scammers and removing it to prevent them from dealing it out any longer. You can also benefit from their identity theft protection, financial fraud protection, and antivirus for the complete security package, all combined into one app at one affordable price. Stop leaving yourself vulnerable to data breaches. Go to my sponsor aura.com/KamSandwich to get a 14-day free trial and see if any of your data has been exposed. Thank you to Aura for sponsoring this video. Now let's get back to exposing ourselves to the glory of one-upmanship. That'll round out the game's design, and as you're getting back into your chair after being blown away by the cube, prepare yourself for another surge as we transition into how you actually play this darn thing. Starting off with the classic page 1 lore dump. One-upmanship. What's the point? Oh buddy, don't give up yet, we just started. The object of one-upmanship is to one-up all the other players in the game, and just like in real life, there are many ways to do this. By shrewdly playing the stock market, building tall buildings and leasing them, collecting envy-inducing and lucrative trophies, and or by gambling big, and winning big. Oh, I'm out then. Luck plays a big part in conquering this dog-eat-dog world, but that sureness, naked ambition, superior intellect, as well as a little bit of diplomacy, stepping on toes and breaking a few legs, won't hurt anything either. Okay, so I'm not a doctor, but I'm pretty sure that will. Seriously, the player who gets to $100,000 first is the winner. Do you have the iron will, razor-sharp focus, charm, and audacity required to be the master of the universe? In one-upmanship, you will need to strategically buy up stocks, real estate, and other high-value items to increase your personal wealth. The player whose assets reach $100,000 first wins. Those quotations being there for a very important reason. For now, let's start the game. 2 to 4 players pick one of the 6 pawns on offer and choose which person they'd like to play as. Johnny Mustard, Beryl Clutterbuck, Stanley Chadwick Morgan III, or the neglected Joe Sixpack. After everyone picks their pawn and gets their cash, we can start. Whoever has the most actual real-world US dollars in cash in their wallet goes first. Euros, pesos, ruples, they straight up don't exist. This game just keeps getting better. Movement is pretty simple. Roll the dice and move the amount shown. If you roll doubles, go again with no limit on the amount of doubles you can roll on one turn. There is one wrinkle with the movement, however. On each space, there will be an arrow on the bottom pointing either left or right. On your next turn, you will be moving your pawn in the direction that arrow points, instead of the standard one solid direction the whole game. This shakes up the movement a bit and can produce chaotic effects like trapping you in a corner for several turns, which has happened to me in every single game we've played since I got it. Once you land on a space, 2 things will happen. The effect of that space will go off and the stock market will shift, which I might as well rip the band-aid off now and try explaining that to you, so get comfortable. The stock market is the driving force at the core of the game's operations, taking a similar approach to 1968's stock market game where players will invest in shares as prices rise and fall throughout the game. Hey you dudes, last minute Cam here. So my previous comment of this title, taking a similar approach to 1968's stock market game, was a little more accurate than I originally thought. As after I decided to look into that title a little more, I discovered that some of the mechanics present here take the exact same approach. Whoa! Now, I'm not crying theft here, as there are plenty of aspects of one-upmanship that are not present within stock market game. But if there is an eerily similar aspect between the two, I will signify that with this terrible text color. So keep your eyes peeled, you will now forget that last minute Cam ever existed. The market's movements are determined by the spaces you land on, as each space will either make the slider move up or down the stock chart various amounts that will impact stocks differently based on their lines. Players can buy shares in a company when they land on one of that company's spaces, giving them the opportunity to purchase as many as they want at the current stock price as long as they have the cash for it. Once you have some shares under your belt, you can choose whether to sell those shares at the start of any of your turns or hold on to them in hopes of a better selling price. Don't get too bullish though, as your shifty stocks are just one bad roll away from enduring the wrath of a total market collapse. Another way to get money off of shares are dividends, which are paid out to any player whenever someone lands on a company that they have shares in. Obviously, the more shares that you own, the more is paid out to you. But regardless of what is going on in the market, you are going to want to hold on to your stocks like some poor delusional peak buyer waiting for that second surge, because you are not going to want to miss out on the massive boon that can arise from the shareholder meetings. Shareholder meetings are specialty spaces on the board that allow you to attend the meetings with that company's top brass to see how bad they screwed up operations that year. I've gotta say, the earnings were great this year, and the only hiccup that we endured was the fact that we ran out of money. To attend a shareholder meeting, you must hold shares in that company. So if you don't have any at the current moment, you'll need to buy one to get in, and if you do already have some, you'll also need to buy one to get in. What is this, some type of buy your ticket at the door situation? But regardless, it is always worth paying your way in due to the effect. When you enter a shareholder meeting, you will roll one die to see how well that company is doing, which will then multiply your total amount of shares in the company based on the number you rolled. There is a slight profit potential from this move, as if your 201 shares suddenly sextuple into 1,206 shares at $121 per share, you now own $145,926 in stock thanks to the wonderful allure of the roll of a die. And there is no downside to this either. The worst case is you roll a 1 and leave with the same amount of stock you went in with. It is quite literally a risk-free investment. If you haven't noticed by now, there is a lot of math going on in the background here. So you will need a calculator when playing this title, or else you're going to need a brain mechanic for the eventual breakdown. I know some of you are going to want to play big boy mathematician and prove you know absolutely all of your times tables, but trust me, when you've been doing calcs for nearly an hour and they hit you with the 57 shares at $89 per share, you will welcome some digital assistance. Finally, it's time to cover that part of the stocks that really curbs my alignment, as the values on the stock cards do not carry the quantities needed to fill the gaps between the values. Each stock card set has 4 10s, 4 20s, 2 50s, 2 100s, and 2 500s, which seems like a lot unless two people are trying to buy the same stock and you flat run out of cards that you can use. Now, this is not like a, oh, there's not infinite stock available, what the hey. I think it's good that there is a maximum amount of shares that you can get. The issue is that if one player has 200 shares in Fiasco Films and someone wants to buy 250, there is no combination of cards left that can showcase that. There are enough shares available to buy in, there's 1,000 available here, but since I can't just tear this card in half, I'm basically forced to go get a sheet of paper to document my purchase. But that's enough market speculation. Let's go from one issue to another with the game's beautiful real estate. The properties in the game work similar to how they do in Monopoly, but with there being only 4 of them. Once you buy a property, you can build on it at any point during your turn, with the stipulation that there is no limit to the amount of floors that you can put on your wonderful tower. However, while you can put as many as you want down, only up to 4 blocks will increase the value of the building. The rest will just be there for added flavor. There are some minor benefits to building past the value line. For those that saw the Monopoly video, you know that controlling the housing market is a very powerful strategy that can prevent your opponents from building up. And with only 16 gorgeous featureless blocks to go around, this is especially relevant here. On top of that, the player who controls the highest tower on the board does not have to pay rent to the other properties, which can come in clutch if you're currently struggling for cash after adding another butte to the Chicago skyline. The bonus space. Quote, board games, like anything else, need a little lubrication every once in a while to keep the fun going. Oh, no! The bonus space is this game's version of Go, Every time you pass it, you collect $1,000, with the added effect of landing on it being that you get to choose which direction you go next turn. Trophies are luxury items that can help showcase your wealth to those below you, and can be purchased for $2,000 anytime you land on a gold star. Each trophy will increase in value the more trophies you have, and can range from useful items like a private jet, private island, or trophy wife, to more questionable purchases like an honorary doctorate, knighthood, or the Cleveland Browns. But wait, you gotta keep an eye out, because the natural predator of the rich is lurking right around the corner and could strike at any minute. That's right, taxes. 3 of the corners on the board are devoted to taxes and fees, with Black Thursday and broker fees taking $10 for every share of stock that you own, and the tax man taking a 20% tax from the value of all the assets you own, excluding stocks. Not like it reduces the amount you have to drop, as this slime fleeced $8,000 in taxes from me one time, when that money could have gone to a much better cause, like gambling. The final corner is where you can do just that. Vegas. Step into the casino and bet your life on the roll of the dice, like a true American. You can gamble against the bank for cash or against another player for whatever they will agree to. Money, properties, trophies, you can legit bet your wife on a die roll like you're Mr. Krabs losing SpongeBob in a card game. It do not matter. There's also a space called Do or Die where you make a bet with another player, but they aren't allowed to refuse it, so high stakes gambling there. The corner spaces also carry the largest market movement values, taking the sucker 15 spaces in either direction, so one unscheduled trip to Vegas could easily result in a total market collapse of your entire portfolio. Free lunch is this version's free parking. Of course, the free parking cash rule is mandatory. Okay, no more stalling. We are covering the chance cards now. The money cards, which will just be referred to as chance from here on out, carry a myriad of effects that take the little balancing that the game has been holding on to and punches it square in the jaw. I can break these cards into 3 categories: cool/funny effects, challenges of sport, and you just lost the game. Let's see what each category has to offer. Cool/funny effects. You've been found guilty of insider trading. You must pay a $1,000 fine or stand in the corner of the room facing the wall for 1 turn. It ain't easy or cheap being green, and you're not environmentally responsible at all. Pay a $1,000 fine or do 25 push-ups penance. Trump card. Present this card to the banker the next time you have to pay a fine, fee, or tax, and voila, you're off the hook. How does this game have a trump card but the Trump game doesn't? Geronimo! You've just been given a golden parachute at Acme. Cash in all your Acme stock at $58 a share. This card would be a whole lot better if Acme wasn't just absolutely terrible. And you've been caught with your pants down. Literally. Take them off for the rest of the game, or lose a turn for sleeping with an intern, chump. This card is so funny that they included its effect in a promo video on their website. Poor guy. Challenges of sport. If you don't know what the game is they're referring to, the rules include a helpful section on how to play each one. Are you all thumbs when it comes to making money? Challenge any other player to a thumb war and find out. Winner gets 500 from the loser. Play a game of liar's poker with any one or all of the other players. Winner gets $1,000 from the losers. Challenge any other player to a staring contest. Winner receives $1,000 or can choose to give the loser a noogie instead. The disrespect. You'll remember this card. Challenge any other players to the alphabet memory game. Winner receives $1,000 from the losers. How? Challenge any other player to an Indian arm wrestling match. Winner gets $1,000 from the loser. And bloody there. Challenge any of your opponents to a game of Knuckles. Winner gets $2,000 from the loser. You know, Bloody Knuckles, the game that does not end until someone calls uncle. You must be out of your mind. And you just lost the game. Is this another boom, or is it a bust? You may flip a coin on any one stock you own. Heads, you lose all of it. Tails means you double it. You always wanted to be like Bill Gates, and now you can be. Hot shot? Donate half of your entire fortune, including stocks, trophies, and real estate, to charity. One time, all access pass to go anywhere on the board right now. The invisible hand is real. Move the stock indicator up or down 15 spaces. On second thought, make that 20 spaces. Shave and a haircut, you just got scalped on your biggest stock. Sell all of it at the lowest board price. And to see how it feels to walk a mile in another man's shoes. All players change places with the player to their left and continue to play the rest of the game as that player. This card is awful. But what happens when you get hit by one of these busters and now are just flat out of money? Well, you get hit by the bankruptcy bug, which operates a little differently here than it does in other titles. If you go bankrupt, you are not eliminated from the game. Instead, you will simply go into debt and continue playing under a special status, where anytime any player rolls doubles, you will receive $1,000 until you are back on your feet at $2,000. This is uncharacteristically nice for a game designed for asserting dominance over your friends. But that's because I'm leaving out what happens to that player when they hit bankrupt. Before you can start playing again, you will need to return to your starting area, where you will then put on one of the scarlet letter B stickers and must wear it for the remainder of the game. Once you hit the $2,000 mark, you will stop receiving charity from the bank, but you will need to keep wearing that B no matter what. What does the B stand for? Could be anything. Bankrupt, broke, boneless. But I choose to think it stands for another word related to the last mechanic we have yet to cover: bitter. Once the combined value of your stocks, assets, and cash on hand reaches the $100,000 mark, you can declare during your turn that you have officially won the game. Or so you think. For you see, once someone reaches the $100,000 mark, any of the other players can step up and take what is known as a bitter pill, which will remove all of their assets from their possession and bankrupt them in order to negate your win and force the game to continue. I have covered this mechanic before, seeing as in its original iteration it was in the running for quite possibly the worst board game mechanic of all time. To remind you of exactly what we're dealing with here, I'll take you through what I understand to be the original bitter pill rule, based off of the information I could find. Once a player reached the win condition, another player could ingest a bitter pill, a physical object that you got out of the pill bottle and swallowed, which would then reset that player back to 0, as well as setting the player that just won the game to 0 as well. There was no limit to the amount of pills a player could take in one game, meaning that the only way the game could end is if everyone agreed to just stop playing. This was on top of the fact that the pills themselves came with no ingredient list or nutritional information. So if you have allergies, you could legitimately be risking it all on this play. I did manage to find a Reddit post that mentioned that they had found a disclaimer on the website about the pills. I couldn't find this disclaimer for myself due to reasons that will become clear later, so just know that this is a big if true moment. Quote, "Seriously, the bitter pills are the only things that should actually be swallowed. They are breath mints for the intelligent, but have no obvious medicinal value whatsoever. They are not sugar or irony-free, and may have come into contact with nuts. As a matter of fact, we know they have. Obvious balls joke aside, if these might have come into contact with nuts, then that needs to be disclosed on the pills! If a person with a nut allergy ingests an afflicted pill, then they could, purely on a hypothetical level, die? This is incomprehensible. Brother passed the entry requirements for the games that could kill their players club with flying colors. Might even find a spot on the board. Luckily, I am without food allergies, so seeing as I am not one to shy away from the bit, I would be more than happy to give one of these a shot for your viewing pleasure. If I actually had any. Remember, what I described to you was how the bitter pills worked in the original version. As for the revamped edition, they have gone in and done a complete overhaul to how the mechanic operates. They could not have feasibly made it any worse, so let's take a look at the errata and see what's new. 1. Taking the pill no longer resets both players back to 0. What happens instead is that the player taking the pill will total up the value of everything they are giving up, and the player that had previously won will subtract that value from their assets to find their new total. This means that you could end up still winning the game if your total is high enough, as only one player can pill at a time. So you could just tank the hit and still end up over the total for the win. 2. Each player only has one bitter pill that they can take during the game. There is no longer a limitless supply. This not only means that the game will eventually end, but also forces you to consider playing a different way so that you can hold on to your pill for longer while making other players use theirs. And 3, and most importantly, these are now metaphorical bitter pills. The ingestible objects no longer come included with the box, and all mentions of them have been practically wiped from history, meaning that you will no longer need to fear for your life while playing, while still needing to endure humiliation by having that big bitter bee slapped on your chest. These fixes have quite literally changed the game, as before this title was practically shackled into forced abysmality due to the unbelievable stank of that one mechanic. Now that it has been fixed, it ends up becoming a mechanic that adds to the game rather than outright decapitating it, granting One-Upmanship the opportunity to be, dare I say it, good? Let's not get ahead of ourselves though. Rules that theoretically have potential are nice and all, but mean nothing if they are unable to actually blend together while you are playing the game. So let's go now from how you play the game to what you'll be doing while you're in there. The gameplay mostly consists of just rolling and moving while carefully considering when is the best time to buy and sell. This could get rather boring, but luckily the market is staggered, with some stocks doing well when the market is up, while other stocks are doing better when the market is down. Meaning that the market won't end up stagnating too often unless it gets stuck in the middle for a while. The choice to reduce the bitter pill count to 1 per person works wonders for balancing. Although if you are playing with larger groups, you might want to lower the victory amount, as 100 grand with 4 or 5 bitter pills around is going to take quite a while to get to. This title does have a distinct chance of dragging if the market stays to one side for an extended period of time, and on top of that, man, it can get straight tedious later in the game. There is so much gosh dang math happening at all times, especially when everyone starts getting some real money to purchase larger and larger quantities of stock. Like I mentioned before, you need a calculator. On top of that, I have another negative against the title. There is so much to keep track of here. In one turn, you might have to keep track of moving the stock market arrow, paying out dividends to multiple people, paying out the bonus, calculating the price of purchasing 56 stocks at $43 per share while already trying to pay out the 35 shares that were sold for $130 per share at the start of the turn as your brain starts succumbing to the melt. So many moving parts are going on at the same time that it is likely that you will end up missing something, which we did. Multiple times. The first time that we played the game, we just completely forgot that the owner of the tallest tower doesn't pay rent. That slipped right through the cracks. On top of my big issue with the bonus being that it does not stand out at all like Go does in Monopoly. So at some point we end up losing focus on it and forgetting to pay out the grand that you get whenever you pass it. You can pin this one on us if you want, but that ended up happening in every single game that we played. So as much as I like to reinforce how stupid I am, I don't think this one's on me. Lastly, a reminder that the money cards take any balancing present in the game and spin kicks it. Let me paint you a picture. It's a 1v1 match and I've already forced my opponent to bitter pill once, meaning I am just a few good plays away from winning the game, but I am struggling a bit to get back up there. Suddenly, I draw a money card. See how it feels to walk in another man's shoes? Switch with the player on your left. Not only does this leave me in a horrifically impoverished position, but due to the card stating that you must continue to play the rest of the game as that player, this means that I've inherited their already used bitter pill. So I have no money, no stocks, no drugs. Why am I even here? And somehow the part that made me the most mad was I couldn't use my night black pawn anymore. I had to use the disgusting milk white one like some type of fool. But no matter what type of gameplay fills up a title, it doesn't mean a whole lot if that game fails to be fun. So let's look at the game's fun factor and see what enjoyment players can expect from the title. The main appeal of one-upmanship comes from the stock market mechanic and how you choose to play that. Risky Biscuit or Safe Sally, the game allows you to go after whatever investment strategy you'd like. I must also admit that it is fun to pretend to be that rich business bro just tossing money at crap. I highly recommend putting on a Manly Men music playlist while you play. It fits really well. Some of these side things can be nice, but most of your enjoyment is coming from building up and selling off your stocks for massive returns, especially if that same boom resulted in a market crash for your friend. In fact, one of the friends that I played with said that the game's loop was so fun that if she could play it solo on an app or something, she absolutely would. As such, those that like a little luck with their decision making, as well as playing Mario Party style games with friends, should get a kick out of this one. However, those that enjoy a more strategy focused experience and want a crisp, well constructed game with clear cut rules and no wiggle room probably won't find a lot of enjoyment here. It just fits much better with a casual board gaming audience. And with all of the categories covered, it is time to deliver the final verdict on, you brain dead moron, you almost forgot the final category again. Oh, you're right, I almost forgot the most important aspect of these run-throughs. The whack crap. I've pretty much already covered all the whack crap inside of the game, but what I haven't touched yet is the whack crap surrounding the game. For instance, the game's website is just straight up wrong in some areas. The card and component list does not match what is included, and I know it's been updated because the bitter pills are nowhere to be found. The language in some of the game's branding just does not land with me. I think they were going for a cool cat frat guy approach, but I was in a frat and we do not talk like that. You can tell that everything about this was done in earnest though, as there were constant updates about the delivery, the package was wrapped really well inside of the box, and included this free sticker, and the man himself, Johnny Mustard, wrote me a personal thank you message on the receipt. I can guarantee that he hand wrote it because he had to scribble out one of the words he misspelled. Which, while absolutely hilarious, it is still really cool that he went to the trouble to thank my anonymous online order. Of course, I cannot cover One-Upmanship without mentioning the Dice Tower review and the response. When Tom Vassell did his review of this title for the Dice Tower, he went through each and every aspect of it and absolutely demolished it, leaving not a single stone unturned as he blasted everything from rightfully terrible aspects like the money and the bitter pills, to more questionable complaints like how Black Thursday making you lose money per share doesn't make sense, or how the stock's not going all up or down in the same way doesn't make sense either, even though it's a great way to balance the stocks out. The review ended up being one of the more popular Dice Tower reviews of that period, which had the negative side effect of those that saw the review going out onto sites like Board Game Geek and tanking the game's review score, which is what led it to having the abysmal 1.2 that you saw earlier. The creator of the game endured this punishment for a while until he eventually snapped 7 years later, releasing a blog post that compared the treatment that he and his game had received online to being something that is quite a massive step worse than that could ever be, before eventually deleting it a few weeks later. This was quite the situation, as I've spoken out against these types of mass reviews before, even though this version of the game was absolutely not good, but on the other side, this was not at all the right way to respond to the situation. Instead of latching onto the criticism and personally insulting those that went against you, respond to the critics by mentioning that you have heard their complaints and used them to craft an inarguably better version of your game. It would have been much more well received, some might have even opted to give you another chance, and you don't end up downplaying a traumatic event. But forget all of that, because we're not looking at the controversy here. We're focused squarely on the game itself. We've run through all of the categories, and it is finally time to deliver the ruling that we have all been waiting for. Is One-Upmanship still a bad game? Ladies and gentlemen, I hate to inform you, it's pretty good. What a recovery! The components are better, the mechanics are better, the game is just monumentally better in every way. Now, some people are going to see what this game has to offer and swear off of it entirely. They might not like the humor, they might not like the creator, they might not like the theme, and that is all fine. But what I am communicating here is that in spite of all of that, the game is pretty fun to play. We have seen quite a few games with bad themes still be good games when it comes down to it. And honestly, a game where you roleplay as the owner of the Cleveland Browns, just tossing cash at whatever stock you land on while your friends wallow in the dirt? That sounds awesome! Now, this game is by no means perfect. When the jokes miss, they miss hard. It can get quite irritating at points with all the math that you have to do and how long it can go on for. And there are definitely some places where improvements could be made. The featureless gray tower. It functions. I kid you not, I bought this game with the intention to spend like 20 minutes absolutely dogging on it. And what ended up happening was it became the only game that I have bought for this channel where I've gone out and played it with friends and they requested to play it again. And you don't even need to bend over backwards to try and find this one like the others I've covered. More than 10 years after the game's release, they are still selling it on their official website, which is crazy support for a game that was received this poorly. I do not disagree with the original ratings that this game received. In its original format, it contained some of the worst components and one of the worst mechanics of all time. But with a little bit of elbow grease, they have taken those issues and bashed them over the head until this turned into a completely different experience. It might not be for everybody, but this bad boy has a lot more appeal to it than I originally thought it ever could. But okay, you find yourself embroiled in a game of one-upmanship, and you're having fun, sure. But what good is fun going to do you if you can't secure the dub? With the latest innovation being that the game can actually be won now, I've got the hot topic strategies fresh off the presses to give you the edge you'll need to build up that generational wealth. The first tip for you, Acme is straight awful. Whoever is running the Acme Corporation needs to be fired because this stock is hot garbage. There are a couple different types of stocks up for grabs here. The two most popular types being the large payout and the high risk, high reward. Companies like Jet-Cetra Airlines and Goldwater can reach up to $182 per share at their peak, but are the most expensive to purchase as a result. Meaning that these are the ones that you are most hoping get multiplied by shareholder meetings for a large payout. The high-risk, high-reward companies like Fiasco Films and Doe, Ray, and Me have lower max payouts but can reach up to 12 times their lowest level compared to the others' 6. However, there is one more type of stock, safeties, which vary a lot less in their price and are therefore less volatile. This category being made up of Cataldo Supply and Acme. These are definitely the weakest stocks, since they don't have the same return or payout highs, but even Cataldo clears in usefulness when compared to Acme. Cataldo can get you up to $94 per share at its height, a little over 5 times its lowest price. Meanwhile, Acme's heights top out at $58 per share, not even 3 times its lowest price. Why in the world would you buy Acme shares when you can get DRM shares for half the price at a larger potential? As for the best way to approach the market in general, one of the most common successful plays is the buy quick, sell quick, buy a bunch, hold. Golly, I wonder what you do there. Easy enough strat to understand. You buy some stock quick with some of your starting cash, then sell it once it goes up for a quick profit. With more money in your pants, you can now buy a lot more stock at a cheap price, then hold on to that until it balloons and you sell for a massive boon. This will take a little luck, as you will need to sell that large holding before you run out of liquid cash. But if you can last until that price peaks, then you'll be pretty much set to make whatever plays you want for the rest of the game. You are going to want to purchase properties and trophies whenever you can. These will massively increase in value with each additional one bought, and if you aren't doing it to help yourself, then you need to keep your competitors from gaining that type of quick value. Let's talk gambling. Strategically, gambling is an awful idea. It is just not worth risking the assets you have built up on a luck-based roll that you have no control over. That being said, I have gambled in every game that we have played, and I am going to keep gambling because it is funny. Guys, you can't even consider it a problem, because whatever I lose, I'll just win back on the next roll. Risk-free investment. Of course, no matter how you play in the game, you're gonna need to have a little luck on your side. Your carefully crafted and well-researched investment portfolio is nice and all, but more times than not, that'll probably lose out to some schmuck who YOLO'd it all on Jet-Cetra and then quadrupled his earnings on the roll of the dice. The American dream. Wild that a game that started off this poorly managed to recover this well. I was extremely surprised by what it has to offer players in terms of gameplay. Again, there are some adjustments that I would still make to improve the game further. Trading out a 500 share card for a few more 100s would be helpful, and changing up some of the balancing could assist a lot, but in general, this bad boy's pretty okay. And sometimes, that's all you'll need to end up having a good time with the buds. Just be sure to vet all the snacks they bring to the event. You never know which of them might have come into contact with nuts beforehand. Signing off for a choleric capsule, I am KamSandwich. Thank you for watching and have a fantastic day. A special thank you to my suppliers, staff, and chefs over at the deli. If you'd like to join the crew, you can take a look using the link in the description below.